My name is Connor Matthews, and I am 21 years old. 3 weeks ago, I graduated from State University with a degree in accounting. I walked across that stage, shook hands with the dean, and received my diploma in front of hundreds of cheering families. But not mine. My family was nowhere to be found. This is the story of how being forgotten on the most important day of my life taught me the most important lesson I have ever learned. Sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who care about you least. Let me start at the beginning so you understand how we got here. I grew up in a middle-class suburb about 2 hours from the university I attended. My family consisted of my father, Greg Matthews, my mother, Diane Matthews, and my younger sister, Brittany, who is 15. Dad worked in sales for a pharmaceutical company. Mom was a part-time administrative assistant at a law firm. We had enough money to live comfortably, but my parents were always stressed about finances, always worried about keeping up appearances, always focused on what other people thought. From as early as I can remember, Brittany was the golden child. She was born when I was 6, and from the moment she arrived, the entire family dynamic shifted. Everything became about her. Her needs, her wants, her happiness. I went from being an only child who got attention to being the older brother whose job was to fade into the background and make things easier for everyone else. Do not get me wrong, I love my sister. She is not a bad kid, but my parents' obsession with her, their need to give her everything, to make sure she had the perfect childhood, the perfect experiences, the perfect life, it came at my expense. And I do not think they even realized they were doing it. When I was 10 and Brittany was 4, I wanted to join a soccer team. It cost $300 for the season. My parents said we could not afford it. That same month, they spent $800 on Brittany's princess-themed birthday party. When I was 12 and wanted to go on a school trip to Washington, D.C., they said it was too expensive. But they took Brittany to Disney World twice before she turned 8. When I was 15 and needed a laptop for school, they made me save up my own money from mowing lawns. When Brittany turned 10, they bought her the latest iPad without her even asking. The pattern was clear. I was expected to be independent, self-sufficient, low maintenance. Brittany was to be doted on, spoiled, given every opportunity. I was the practice child. She was the one they got right. By the time I got to high school, I had stopped asking them for things. I got a part-time job at 16 and started paying for everything myself. School supplies, clothes, gas money, anything I needed. They praised me for being so responsible and independent, never seeming to realize that I was only that way because I had to be, because they would not provide for me the way they provided for Brittany. When it came time to think about college, my guidance counselor sat me down junior year and asked about my family's college fund for me. I laughed. There was no college fund. There had never been a college fund. When I told my parents I wanted to go to college, they said that was great, and they supported my decision, but I would have to figure out how to pay for it myself. They were already saving for Brittany's college fund, they explained, and they could not afford to fund both of us. So I applied for every scholarship I could find. I filled out the FAFSA. I took out student loans. I worked 2 jobs my senior year of high school, saving every penny. I got into State University with a partial academic scholarship that covered about 40% of tuition. The rest I covered with loans and my savings and working multiple jobs throughout college. My parents did not contribute a single dollar to my education, not $1 in 4 years. But when people asked them about my college experience, they would beam with pride and talk about how I was putting myself through school as if it was some noble character-building exercise they had encouraged rather than a necessity they had forced upon me. College was hard, not just academically, though that was challenging enough with a demanding accounting program that required precision and long hours of studying. But working 25 to 30 hours a week, while taking a full course load, while trying to have some semblance of a social life, was exhausting in ways I could never have anticipated when I was a naive 18-year-old filling out college applications. My freshman year, I worked in the campus bookstore. It was minimum wage, but it was convenient because it was on campus and they were flexible with student schedules. I worked Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons from 2 to 6 and all day Saturday. My shifts were spent ringing up textbooks that cost more than I made in a week, helping students who had parents paying for their education without a second thought, smiling and being helpful, while internally calculating how many hours I would need to work to afford my own books. I remember one particularly painful moment that first semester. A girl came in to buy her textbooks for economics class. She had 6 books, and the total came to $743. She handed me her dad's credit card without even looking at the total. While I was ringing her up, her phone rang. She answered it on speaker. "Hey, Dad. I am just getting my books now." "Great, sweetie. Did you find everything you need?" "Yeah, it is like 700 something. That is okay, right?" "Of course, honey. Whatever you need. Just focus on your studies. Do not worry about money." She hung up and smiled at me. Parents, right? So overprotective. I smiled back and handed her the receipt. I did not tell her that I had bought all my textbooks used online and was still short one book I could not afford yet. I did not tell her that "do not worry about money" was a sentence I had never heard from my parents. I just said, "Have a great semester," and help the next student. That night, I ate ramen noodles for dinner in my dorm room, while my roommate went out to a restaurant with his family who was visiting. I did not feel sorry for myself, exactly. I felt determined. If everyone else had help, and I did not, then I would just have to work twice as hard. I would just have to be tougher, smarter, more resourceful. By sophomore year, I had added a second job. I worked at a landscaping company every summer, but I realized I needed more income during the school year too. I started doing freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. I would post ads on local bulletin boards and online, offering to manage books for $50 a month. It was not much, but 10 clients meant $500 a month, which made a huge difference. I would do bookkeeping work late at night after my shifts at the campus bookstore. I would sit in my dorm room with my laptop, entering expenses and reconciling accounts for a local plumbing company or a small restaurant or a hair salon. My roommate would be out at parties or watching movies with friends, and I would be hunched over spreadsheets, making sure every dollar was accounted for. Sometimes I would hear laughter echoing down the hallway, groups of students heading out for the evening, talking about where they were going, what they were doing. I would feel a pang of loneliness, of missing out. But then I would look at my bank account and remember why I was doing this. I was building a future. I was creating opportunities. This was the price of independence. Junior year, I added a third income stream. I started tutoring students in accounting and math. I charged $25 an hour, and I usually had 5 to 8 hours of tutoring sessions a week. It was good money for the time investment, and it helped me solidify my own understanding of the material by teaching it to others. But it was also exhausting. There were weeks where I would work my regular bookstore shifts, do 15 hours of freelance bookkeeping, tutor for 8 hours, attend all my classes, complete all my assignments, and study for exams. I was getting maybe 5 hours of sleep a night. I was living on coffee and cheap energy drinks and sheer willpower. I remember one particular week during my junior year. I had 3 exams, a major paper due, a bookkeeping emergency with a client whose files were a mess, and a full schedule of work shifts and tutoring sessions. I had been awake for nearly 48 hours straight, cramming for an exam while fixing someone's QuickBooks file while trying to write a paper on tax law. At 3 in the morning, sitting in the library, I felt myself start to cry from sheer exhaustion and stress. I went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror, and said out loud, "You can do this. You have to do this. There is no other option." Then I went back to my desk and kept working. That was the moment I realized I had developed something my parents could never give me. Resilience. Not the kind of resilience people talk about in motivational posters. Real resilience. The kind that comes from having no safety net and surviving anyway. The kind that comes from being so tired you can barely think, but finding a way to think anyway. The kind that comes from wanting to quit every single day, but choosing not to. But that resilience came at a cost. I did not have close friends in college. I did not have time for them. I would go to the occasional party or hang out with classmates between classes, but I could not commit to anything deeper. I could not join clubs or intramural sports or study abroad programs. I could not do any of the things that make college memorable because I was too busy trying to survive it. I did not date. How could I? What girl wants to date a guy who works 3 jobs and is constantly exhausted and never has time to do anything fun? A few girls expressed interest over the years, but it never went anywhere. I did not have the bandwidth for a relationship. I barely had the bandwidth for myself. My senior year, I was taking 18 credit hours because I had missed a required class earlier and needed to make it up to graduate on time. I was also working all 3 of my jobs. I was also applying for post-graduation positions, which was like a 4th job in terms of time and energy. Resume writing, interview prep, networking, applications. Hours and hours of work on top of everything else. There were days I would get up at 6 in the morning, make it to class by 8, attend classes until noon, work at the bookstore until 4, grab fast food for dinner, tutor from 5 to 8, then work on freelance bookkeeping and homework until 2 in the morning. Then I would sleep for 4 hours and do it all again. I was proud of my work ethic. I was proud that I was making it work, but I was also resentful. Resentful that I had to work this hard. Resentful that other students had parents who paid their tuition and gave them spending money and let them focus on their education. Resentful that my own parents, who had the financial means to help at least a little bit, had chosen not to. During my 4 years of college, my parents would occasionally call to check in. The conversations were always brief and superficial. They would ask how school was going. I would say fine. They would ask about my grades. I would say they were good. They would tell me about Brittany's latest accomplishment or activity. I would say that was great. Then we would hang up. They never asked if I needed help. They never asked how I was managing financially. They never asked if the workload was too much or if I was okay. They just assumed I was fine because I always told them I was fine. And I always told them I was fine because I knew asking for help was pointless. In the spring of my senior year, about 2 months before graduation, I was on the phone with my mom. She was telling me about Brittany's latest achievement. She had made the varsity cheer team or something. Then, almost as an afterthought, she said, "Oh, by the way, have you made any plans for after graduation?" "Yeah. I got a job offer at Sullivan & Associates. It is an accounting firm in the city. Good salary, benefits, everything. I am starting in June." "Oh, Connor, that is wonderful. We are so proud of you. See, all that hard work paid off. All that hard work. As if it was a choice I had made to build character, rather than a necessity she had forced on me." "Yeah," I said, "all that hard work. You should be very proud of yourself. You did this all on your own. That is quite an accomplishment." I wanted to scream into the phone. "Yes, I did it all on my own. Because you made me do it all on my own. Because you chose not to help me. Because you decided Brittany was worth investing in, and I was not. But instead, I just said, 'Thanks, Mom,' and changed the subject." After that call, I sat in my apartment and thought about my college experience. For years of my life, For years of sacrifice and struggle and exhaustion. For years of missing out on experiences my peers took for granted. For years of being proud and resentful in equal measure. I had done it. I was going to graduate with a degree and a job and zero financial help from my family. That was supposed to feel like a victory, and in some ways it did, but it also felt hollow, because I should not have had to do it this way. I should have had parents who supported me, who helped me, who prioritized my education the way they prioritized everything for Brittany. But I did not have those parents, and wishing for different parents was not going to change anything, so I focused on what I could control, finishing strong, getting that diploma, starting my new job, building a life that was mine. Graduation was scheduled for Saturday, May 12th. I had ordered my cap and gown months in advance. I had reserved 4 tickets for my family back in February when they became available. My parents, my sister, and my maternal grandmother, who I was close to, for people who I wanted to be there to celebrate this huge accomplishment with me. I texted my family the details: date, time, location, parking information. I sent it to the family group chat we had. I texted my mom separately to make sure she had all the information. I called my dad a week before to confirm everyone was still coming. He said yes. Of course they would be there. They would not miss it. I was excited. This was my moment. After 4 years of struggle, of working myself to exhaustion, of sacrifice and stress, and barely scraping by, I was going to walk across that stage and get my diploma, and my family was going to be there to see it. The day before graduation, Friday the 11th, I texted the family group chat one more time. Hey everyone, graduation is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Cannot wait to see you all there. No response. I figured they were busy. They would respond later. That evening, around 7, I called my mom. It went to voicemail. I called my dad. Voicemail. I texted both of them. Just confirming you are all still coming tomorrow? No response. I started to feel uneasy. It was not like them to completely ignore me. Usually my mom would at least text back, even if it was just a quick yes or thumbs up emoji. I called my grandmother. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Hi, Grammy, I said. Just wanted to confirm you are still coming to my graduation tomorrow. There was a long pause. Then she said, in a careful voice, Connor, honey, did not your mother tell you? My stomach dropped. Tell me what? We are not coming tomorrow. Your parents decided to take Brittany on a beach trip this week. They left this morning. They will not be back until Monday. I sat down on my bed, the phone pressed to my ear, trying to process what I was hearing. They what? I am so sorry, sweetheart. I thought you knew. I thought they had told you. They planned this trip a few weeks ago. Some kind of last-minute vacation package deal they found online. Your father said they needed a break. But Grammy, my graduation is tomorrow. They have known about it for months. I gave them the date back in February. They confirmed they were coming. I know, honey. I am so sorry. I told your mother it was wrong to skip your graduation, but she said you would understand. She said you are an adult now and did not need them there for everything. Did not need them. My voice cracked. It is my college graduation. I worked for 4 years for this. I did it all on my own. This is the one day I wanted them to be there. I know, Connor. I know. And I wish I could be there, but I do not drive long distances anymore, and I do not have any other way to get there. I am truly sorry. It is okay, Grammy. It is not your fault. Thanks for telling me. I hung up and sat on my bed in stunned silence. They were not coming. They had known for months that my graduation was this weekend, and they had planned a beach vacation anyway. They had just decided that Brittany's spring break trip was more important than my college graduation, and they had not even told me. They had let me think they were coming right up until the day before. They had not had the courtesy to give me a heads up so I could mentally prepare for this. I called my mom again. Straight to voicemail. I called my dad. Voicemail. I sent a text to the family group chat. Grammy just told me you are at the beach and not coming to my graduation tomorrow. Is this true? No response. I waited an hour, then 2 hours, then 3. Nothing. Finally, around 11 at night, my mom texted back. Sorry, Han. Should have told you earlier. We found a great deal on a beach house rental, and Brittany really needed a vacation after her stressful semester. We will celebrate with you when we get back. Congrats. That was it. That was the entire explanation. No apology. No acknowledgement of how messed up this was. Just a casual, we will celebrate later, as if missing my actual graduation was no big deal. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, cycling through anger and hurt and disbelief. They had chosen a beach trip over my graduation. They had chosen Brittany's need for a vacation over my once-in-a-lifetime moment, and they saw nothing wrong with it. The next morning, I got dressed in my cap and gown. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror for a long time, just looking at myself. The black gown, the blue and gold tassel, the honor cords I had earned for maintaining above a 3.5 GPA for years of work had led to this day. I should have been excited. I should have been proud. Instead, I felt hollow, empty, like I was going through the motions of something that was supposed to matter, but somehow did not anymore. I took a selfie in my cap and gown and almost posted it to social media. But what would I caption it? Graduation day. So excited. That would be a lie. Graduating alone because my family chose a beach vacation. That would be pathetic. So I just saved the photo to my camera roll and put my phone away. I walked to the stadium where the ceremony was being held. It was a beautiful May morning. Sunny, mild temperature, perfect for an outdoor ceremony. Graduates were gathering outside the stadium entrance. A sea of black gowns and colorful honor cords and excited chatter. Everyone seemed to have someone there. Parents, grandparents, siblings, friends. Everyone but me. I saw a girl I recognized from my accounting classes standing with what looked like her entire extended family. There must have been 15 people clustered around her, all taking turns hugging her and taking pictures. Her mom was crying happy tears. Her dad had his arm around her shoulders, beaming with pride. Her little brothers were making silly faces for the camera. It was a perfect family moment. I looked away. Another graduate was nearby, sitting on a bench with an older couple who were clearly his grandparents. They were holding his hands and telling him something that was making him emotional. He was wiping his eyes and laughing at the same time. The grandfather stood up and pulled him into a long hug. The grandmother was taking pictures of them. I looked away. Everywhere I looked, there were families, happy families, celebrating their graduate. Families who had shown up. Families who considered this day important enough to be there. Families who loved their children enough to prioritize them. I walked toward my assigned meeting area for my college. Within the university, other accounting graduates were gathering there, comparing notes on where they would be sitting, who they knew in other sections, what they were doing after the ceremony. I stood on the edge of the group, not quite part of it, but not entirely separate either. Connor. A voice called out. I turned to see David, a classmate I had worked on several group projects with over the years. He was with an older couple who had to be his parents. Hey man, glad I found you. Are these your parents? No, they could not make it. Oh, that sucks. Well, these are mine. Mom, Dad, this is Connor Matthews, best accounting student in our class. Saved my ass on more than one group project. His parents smiled at me. His mother reached out and shook my hand. It is so nice to meet you, Connor. David has told us about you. Congratulations on graduating. Thank you. Are you celebrating after this? You should join us. We are taking David and a few of his friends to that steakhouse downtown. That is really nice of you, but I have other plans. Thank you, though. I did not have other plans. But I was not going to crash someone else's family celebration. I was not going to be the charity case tagging along because his own family could not be bothered to show up. The ceremony organizers started directing us to line up. We were filing in alphabetically by last name. I found my spot in line between a girl named Melissa Martinez and a guy named Trevor Mitchell. Neither of them were people I knew well. We made small talk about being glad it was finally happening, about starting our jobs, about being done with exams. Normal graduation day, small talk. When we were finally directed to start walking into the stadium, I felt my heart rate pick up. This was it, the moment I had been working toward for 4 years. We walked through the tunnel and into the stadium, and I heard the crowd erupt in cheers. Thousands of people standing and clapping and celebrating their graduates. I walked to my assigned seat and sat down. The stadium was enormous, easily holding 10,000 people. The stands were completely full. Every graduate had people there, every single one except me. I looked up into the stands, scanning the faces, even though I knew mine would not be there. Old habits die hard, I guess. Part of me still half expected to see them. Part of me still hoped that maybe they had changed their minds. Maybe they had come back from the beach early. Maybe they had realized they were making a terrible mistake. But they were not there. The seats that should have held my family were occupied by strangers. People who were there for someone else. People who had shown up. The ceremony began. The university president spoke about our bright futures. A local politician gave a speech about serving our community. A student speaker talked about perseverance and chasing dreams. I barely heard any of it. I was numb, going through the motions, waiting for it to be over. Then they started calling names. College by college, degree by degree, hundreds of graduates crossing the stage. I watched them all walk up, shake hands, receive their diploma covers, smile for the photographer. And for each one, I heard cheers from the stands. Family and friends screaming their names, air horns blowing, people on their feet celebrating. When my college was called to start lining up, I felt my hands start to shake. This was it. This was my moment. The moment I had sacrificed so much for. The moment I had worked 3 jobs and gotten 5 hours of sleep a night and skipped parties and relationships and normal college experiences for. This moment, right here. I walked up the steps to the stage platform. I could hear them calling names ahead of me. Kelsey Mason. Huge cheers. Travis Matthews. More cheers. Then it was my turn. Connor Gregory Matthews. I walked across the stage. I shook the dean's hand. He said something congratulatory that I did not really process. I took the diploma cover from the assistant. I turned toward the photographer and forced a smile. The flash went off, and then I walked off the other side of the stage. The cheers I had heard for everyone else, silent for me. Well, not silent. There was the general applause from the crowd, the baseline noise that was there for everyone. But no one was cheering specifically for me. No one was screaming my name. No one was on their feet, celebrating my accomplishment. I was just another name called. Another graduate crossing the stage. Another face in the sea of black gowns. Unremarkable. Unmemorable. Alone. I walked back to my seat and sat down. I clutched my diploma cover in my hands and stared at it. This piece of leather-bound cardboard represented 4 years of my life. 4 years of sacrifice. 4 years of exhaustion. 4 years of struggle. And I was holding it, surrounded by thousands of people, and I had never felt more alone in my entire life. The ceremony continued. More names. More cheers. More graduates having their moment, with their families watching. I sat there feeling like I was underwater, like everything was muffled and distant, and not quite real. When they finally called the last name and announced us all as graduates, everyone threw their caps in the air. I threw mine too, going through the motion, because that was what you were supposed to do. But my heart was not in it. Nothing about this day felt celebratory. After the ceremony, the stadium cleared out. Graduates met up with their families on the field, taking pictures, crying, laughing, hugging. I walked through the crowd toward the exit. No one stopped me. No one was waiting for me. I walked back to my apartment. It was about a mile from campus. I could have taken the shuttle, but I wanted to walk. I wanted the time to think, to process, to figure out what I was feeling. The streets were full of graduates and their families, all heading to celebration lunches and dinners. Groups taking pictures in front of campus landmarks. Cars honking with graduation decorations taped to them. I walked past all of it, still in my cap and gown, because I had not thought to bring regular clothes to change into. I got a few congratulations from passing strangers. I smiled and thanked them and kept walking. When I got to my apartment, I took off my cap and gown and laid them on my bed. I looked at them for a long time. Then I went to my kitchen, opened a beer, and sat on my couch in silence. I had graduated college. I was done for years of the hardest work of my life, and it was over. I should have been celebrating. I should have been out to dinner with my family, toasting my accomplishment, looking forward to my future. Instead, I was drinking a cheap beer alone in my apartment at 3 p.m, wondering how my life had led to this moment. My phone sat on the coffee table in front of me, silent. No calls, no texts, nothing from my family. Hours passed. The afternoon turned into evening. The sun set. My apartment grew dark, and I did not bother turning on the lights. I just sat there in the darkness, drinking beer and feeling sorry for myself in a way I had not allowed myself to feel in a very long time. Around 9 o'clock, I finally got up and turned on a lamp. I looked at my phone. Still nothing from my parents. I checked social media. My mom had posted pictures from the beach. Brittany in a bikini, smiling at the camera. My dad on a jet ski. The whole family at a seafood restaurant, toasting with tropical drinks. The caption said, "Beach vacation with the fam. Making memories. Making memories." While I graduated alone. Sunday came and went. Still nothing. Monday morning, I had to be at work for my first day at the accounting firm. I put on my suit, drove into the city, and started my new job. My boss congratulated me on graduating. My coworkers welcomed me to the team. They asked how graduation was, and I lied and said it was great. I was not going to tell these people. I barely knew that my own family had not bothered to show up. Monday evening, I finally got a text from my mom. Had an amazing trip. Beach was beautiful. Brittany loved it. We are home now. When are you free to come over for a graduation dinner? I stared at that text for a long time. She wanted to know when I was free for a graduation dinner, as if that would make up for missing the actual graduation, as if a dinner 3 days late was equivalent to being there for the real thing. I did not respond. Tuesday, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message saying they wanted to take me out to celebrate, and could I please respond to Mom's text? I still did not respond. Wednesday, Mom called 3 times. I did not answer. Thursday morning, I got a text from Brittany. "Hey Connor, Mom says you are mad at them for missing graduation. That is kind of silly. They said they will take you to dinner. Why are you being difficult?" I almost laughed. Silly. She thought it was silly that I was upset my entire family had skipped my college graduation for a beach vacation. Of course she did. She had been taught her entire life that she was the priority and everyone else should just understand. I texted back, "Not being difficult, just busy with my new job." That was Thursday. On Friday, 3 days after graduation, I was at my apartment after work when I got a text from my mom. "Connor, We need to talk about Brittany's Sweet 16. It is coming up in 2 months, and we want to throw her a really special party. We found a perfect venue, but it is pricey. We need $2,100 to secure it. Can you help us out? She is your sister, and this is a really important milestone for her. I read that text probably 10 times. They wanted me to give them $2,100 for Brittany's birthday party. After they had skipped my college graduation for a beach trip, after they had not contributed a single dollar to my education, after they had spent 4 years making me fend for myself while showering Brittany with everything she could ever want, they wanted me to fund her Sweet 16 party. The audacity was breathtaking. The complete lack of self-awareness was staggering. They genuinely thought this was an appropriate request. They genuinely saw nothing wrong with asking me, the son they had just abandoned on his graduation day, to give them thousands of dollars for my sister's birthday party. I sat there staring at that text for probably 20 minutes. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to write back a long message explaining exactly why this was insane. Part of me wanted to call them and scream. Part of me wanted to text back, "Are you serious right now?" and wait for their response. But then I realized something. They would not get it. No matter what I said, no matter how I explained it, they would not understand. They would make excuses. They would say I was being difficult. They would say I was overreacting. They would find a way to make me the bad guy. So I did not give them that opportunity. I looked at my bank account. I had just started my new job. My first paycheck would not come for another 2 weeks. I had saved a little bit of money from my last few weeks of work in college, but not much. I had student loan payments starting in 6 months. I had rent and car insurance and groceries and gas and all the normal expenses of adult life. I was not broke, but I was not exactly rolling in money either. $2,100 was a significant chunk of my savings. It would hurt to give them that much money. But more than the money, it was the principle. It was the complete lack of awareness. The assumption that I would just fork over thousands of dollars for Brittany's party after everything that had happened. The entitlement. The expectation that I would prioritize her birthday party over my own financial security. I opened Venmo. I sent my mom $1. Exactly $1. In the memo line, I thought carefully about what to write. I wanted it to be clear. I wanted it to make a statement. I finally settled on, "Congrats on your priorities." I hit send. Within 2 minutes, my phone was ringing. Mom calling. I looked at the phone, watched her name flash on the screen, and let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Then my dad started calling. Voicemail. My mom again. Voicemail. Then the text started flooding in. Mom. Connor, what is this supposed to mean? Mom. Why did you send me $1? Dad. Connor, call us right now. Mom. This is extremely disrespectful. Dad. Your sister deserves a nice party. Mom. We need to talk about this right now. Dad. You are being childish. Mom. After everything we have done for you. That last text almost made me laugh. After everything they had done for me. What exactly had they done for me? Raised me to 18. That was their legal obligation, not some generous gift. Taught me to be independent? No, they had forced me to be independent because they were too busy with Brittany. Supported my dreams? No, they had told me to figure it out myself, while funding every one of Brittany's desires. I turned my phone on silent and put it face down on my couch. I sat there feeling something I had not felt in a very long time. Power. Control. For the first time in my life, I had said no to my family. I had refused to be the ATM they could withdraw from whenever they needed money for Brittany. And it felt good. It felt really, really good. About an hour later, there was a pounding on my door. Loud, aggressive, demanding. I looked through the peephole. My parents. Both of them. Standing in the hallway looking angry. My dad's face was red. My mom was clutching her phone like a weapon. I did not open the door. "Connor!" my dad yelled, pounding on the door again. "Open this door right now. We drove all the way here. We need to talk to you." "We are not leaving until you open this door," my mom added. "This is ridiculous. You are acting like a child." I stood on the other side of the door, completely silent, my hand on the doorknob, but not turning it. They had driven 2 hours to my apartment. They had shown up unannounced. They were demanding entry into my home because I had refused to give them money. The irony was not lost on me. They could drive 2 hours to demand money from me, but they could not drive 2 hours to attend my graduation. "Connor, we know you are in there," my dad shouted. "Your car is outside. Open the door. We are your parents. You do not get to ignore us," my mom added. They pounded and yelled for about 10 minutes. I could hear my neighbors' doors opening, people checking to see what the commotion was about. I was embarrassed, but also oddly calm. I was not going to reward their behavior by engaging with it. I was not going to let them bully me into giving them what they wanted. Finally, I heard my dad say, "Fine. If he wants to be this way, we will handle it another way." "What do you mean?" my mom asked. "I mean, we have legal options. He has property that belongs to us. If he is going to refuse to communicate like an adult, we can go through the proper channels." They left. I heard their footsteps retreating down the hallway, heard them arguing as they walked away, heard the stairwell door slam shut. I stood there for a long moment, processing what my dad had just said. Legal options? Property that belonged to them? What was he talking about? Then it hit me. They were going to try to claim that the things in my apartment, things they had given me over the years, were technically theirs. Or maybe they were going to claim I owed them money for something. Or maybe they were just going to call the police and make up some story to try to get me in trouble. I did not know exactly what they were planning, but I knew it was not going to be good. I sat back down on my couch and made a decision. If they wanted to escalate this, fine. But I was going to protect myself. I pulled out my phone and started making a list. Every instance I could remember over the past 15 years where my parents had chosen Brittany over me. Every time they had spent money on her while telling me they could not afford to help me. Every time they had prioritized her needs and dismissed mine. The list was long, very long. I also started gathering documentation. I found my receipt for the laptop they had claimed they bought me. I dug through old emails and found messages from my dad telling me I needed to figure out how to pay for college myself. I found text messages from my mom bragging about Brittany's latest expensive gift. I was building a case, just in case I needed it. Then I went online and ordered new locks for my apartment door. If my parents had a key to my place, which I suspected they did from when they had helped me move in freshman year, I was not going to let them use it. Not anymore. I paid extra for express shipping. The locks would arrive Monday. The weekend passed in tense silence. My phone continued to blow up with messages from my parents, then from extended family members who they had clearly recruited to their side. Texts from aunts and uncles saying I should talk to my parents, that family was important, that I was being unfair. I did not respond to any of them. The locks arrived on Monday via express shipping. I took the rest of the day off work, told my boss I had a family emergency to deal with, and spent the afternoon installing them. It was surprisingly easy. Just a screwdriver and about 30 minutes. New deadbolt, new doorknob with a key lock, new chain lock for extra security. I threw the old locks in the trash and kept the new keys on my key ring. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. My apartment was mine. My space was secure. My parents could not just walk in whenever they wanted. I had taken control. Wednesday morning, I was at work when I got a call from an unknown number. Usually I did not answer those, but something made me pick up. Hello, is this Connor Matthews? Yes, who is this? This is Officer Johnson with the City Police Department. We have received a complaint from your parents regarding stolen property. We need you to come down to the station to answer some questions. My heart started racing. My hands went cold. They had actually done it. They had called the police on me, their own son, because I would not give them money. What? Stolen property? I have not stolen anything. Your parents are claiming you have taken items from their home without permission and are refusing to return them. They would like to file a report. Can you come to the station this afternoon? This is insane. I have not taken anything from them. I moved out years ago. Everything in my apartment is mine. Nevertheless, they have filed a complaint, and we need to speak with you. Can you be here at 3? I wanted to refuse. I wanted to tell this officer that my parents were lying, that this was harassment, that I should not have to leave work to deal with their false accusations. But I also knew that refusing to cooperate would only make me look guilty. Yes, I will be there at 3. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Ask for me at the front desk when you arrive. I hung up and sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. I could not believe this was happening. I could not believe my parents had actually weaponized the police against me. This was not just family drama anymore. This was them trying to use law enforcement to punish me for setting boundaries. I told my boss I needed to leave early for a personal emergency. He was understanding, which I appreciated. I was still new at this job. I did not want to make a bad impression, but I also did not have a choice. I drove to the police station with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I had never been in trouble with the police before. I had never even gotten a speeding ticket. And now I was going to be interrogated about theft I did not commit because my parents could not accept that I had said no to them. When I arrived, the police station was exactly what you would expect. Institutional, cold, fluorescent lighting, people sitting on benches looking scared or angry or resigned. I walked up to the front desk and told the officer I was there to see Officer Johnson. A few minutes later, Officer Johnson appeared. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes but a tired expression, like he had seen too much family drama in his career and was exhausted by all of it. Mr. Matthews, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you cooperating. Your parents are in interview room B. Let us go talk to them and sort this out. He led me down a hallway past several offices and interview rooms. Through small windows in the doors, I could see other people being questioned, other dramas playing out. We stopped at interview room B. Officer Johnson opened the door, and I saw my parents sitting on one side of a table, looking self-righteous and angry. Please have a seat, Mr. Matthews, Officer Johnson said, gesturing to a chair on the other side of the table from my parents. I sat down. I did not look at my parents. I kept my eyes on Officer Johnson. Okay, Officer Johnson said, taking out a notebook and pen. Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, you called in a complaint about your son stealing property from you. Can you explain what property is in question? My mom leaned forward, her hands clasped on the table. Connor has been given many gifts and items over the years. Electronics, furniture, clothes, money, all purchased by us. And now, he is refusing to give them back or compensate us for them. We want our property returned, or we want to be reimbursed for the value. I stared at her. Are you serious right now? Connor, do not take that tone with your mother. My dad snapped. You have benefited from our generosity for 21 years. The least you could do is show some gratitude instead of acting like an entitled brat. Entitled? I could not help but laugh. I am entitled. That is rich coming from you. Officer Johnson held up a hand. Let me make sure I understand. You are saying that items you gave your son as gifts over the years, you now want returned or compensated for. Yes, my mom said firmly. We have receipts for everything. Computer, furniture, clothes, bedding, kitchen items, all of it. It adds up to thousands of dollars. If he is going to cut us out of his life and disrespect us, then we want our property back. And when were these items given to him? Over the years, birthdays, Christmases, when he moved into his apartment, throughout his childhood and college years. Officer Johnson looked at me. Connor, is there something you want to say about this? Yes, I said, my voice shaking with anger but also with determination. First of all, the computer they are talking about, I bought it myself with money from my lawn mowing business when I was 15 because they refused to buy me one. I have the receipt at home. I can show you. Second, the furniture, most of it I bought used from thrift stores or got for free from friends who were moving. The only things they ever gave me were hand-me-downs or clearance items. Third, they did not call you because they actually want their property back. They called you because I refused to give them money. That is a lie, my mom said, her voice rising. We are concerned about our property. This has nothing to do with money. Really, I pulled out my phone because I have all your text messages right here, including the one from last Friday asking me for $2,100 for my sister's Sweet 16 party. And when I refused, that is when you started calling and showing up at my apartment and threatening me. This is not about property. This is about control. This is about punishing me for saying no to you. Officer Johnson took my phone and scrolled through the messages. His expression grew more and more unimpressed as he read. I watched my parents' faces as the officer read. My mom looked like she wanted to grab the phone away. My dad looked like he was calculating his next move. Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, Officer Johnson said slowly, handing my phone back to me. It appears that the items in question were either purchased by your son or given to him as gifts over the course of his childhood and young adulthood. In either case, they are his property, not yours. Gifts, by legal definition, become the property of the recipient once given. You cannot demand them back or seek compensation for them after the fact. But we are his parents, my dad protested. We raised him. We provided for him for 18 years. He owes us. Legally, no, he does not. You chose to have a child. That came with legal and financial obligations that you were required to fulfill. Your son does not owe you reimbursement for fulfilling your parental duties. Furthermore, based on these text messages, it appears this complaint is not genuinely about property theft, but rather about a family financial dispute. He looked at them sternly. Filing a false police report is a crime, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews. I could charge you both, right now, with making a false statement to law enforcement. That is a misdemeanor that carries fines and potentially jail time. My parents went pale. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. My dad sat back in his chair, his face losing its aggressive posture. However, Officer Johnson continued, I am going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume this was a misunderstanding born out of emotional conflict rather than intentional fraud. I am going to let you leave with a warning. But I want to be very clear. Connor has not stolen anything from you. You cannot use law enforcement to settle family disputes over money. If you file another false report, or if you continue to harass your son, I will press charges. Do you understand? My parents nodded, looking humiliated and angry in equal measure. Good. Now I suggest you all go home and work out your family issues without involving the police. Connor, you are free to go. You have not done anything wrong. I stood up. My parents started to get up too, but Officer Johnson held up his hand. Actually, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, I would like you to stay for a few more minutes. I want to make sure we are completely clear on the law regarding false police reports and harassment. I want to document this conversation thoroughly, so that if there are any future issues, we have a record of this warning. I left the room. Officer Johnson followed me out and closed the door behind us, leaving my parents inside. "I am sorry you had to deal with that," he said quietly. "Family disputes are difficult, but what they did today was not okay. If they contact you again, if they show up at your home or your work, if they make any more threats, you call me directly." He handed me his business card. "I mean it. What they are doing is harassment, and you do not have to tolerate it." "Thank you, Officer Johnson. I appreciate you seeing through their story. It is my job, and for what it is worth, you handled yourself well in there. A lot of people would have lost their temper. You kept your cool and presented facts. That matters." I walked out of the police station and sat in my car for a long time before driving home. My hands were still shaking, but now it was from adrenaline rather than fear. I had just watched my parents try to weaponize the police against me because I would not give them money. The people who were supposed to love me and support me had tried to get me in legal trouble because I had set a boundary. That was the moment everything clicked into place. This was not normal family dysfunction. This was not my parents being flawed but loving. This was abuse. This was manipulation. This was what happens when parents see their children as resources to be exploited rather than people to be loved. I sat in my car for a long time before driving home. I realized that I had been lying to myself for 21 years. I had convinced myself that my parents loved me but just had different priorities, that they were not trying to hurt me. They just did not understand what I needed, that if I just tried harder, was more successful, was more helpful, eventually they would see me the way they saw Brittany. But that was never going to happen. They were never going to see me as more than a resource to be tapped when they needed something. I was the responsible one, the independent one, the one who did not need anything from them, which really meant I was the one they did not have to care about. I was the ATM, the backup plan, the son they could ignore until they needed money or help or something from me. And I was done with it. I was done trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I was done sacrificing for a family that had never sacrificed for me. I was done being the forgotten son while they poured everything into Brittany. When I got home, I sat down and wrote an email to my parents. I spent hours on it, writing and rewriting, trying to articulate everything I had been feeling for years. This is what I sent. Mom and Dad, I am writing this email because I need to say things that I have never been able to say out loud, and I need you to actually hear them without interrupting or dismissing them. I have spent my entire life trying to earn your love and attention. From the moment Brittany was born, I went from being your son to being an afterthought. Every decision you made, every dollar you spent, every ounce of attention you gave was directed at her. And I do not blame her for that. She was a child. She did not ask to be the golden child, but you chose to make her that. You chose to give her everything while giving me nothing. You say I am independent and responsible, as if those are inherent personality traits. They are not. They are coping mechanisms I developed because I had to, because you forced me to become self-sufficient at an age when I should have still been able to rely on my parents. When I needed a laptop for school, you made me earn it myself. But you bought Brittany an iPad without her asking. When I wanted to join soccer, you said you could not afford it, but you took Brittany to Disney World multiple times. When I went to college, you did not contribute a single dollar to my education, but you are saving a college fund for Brittany. I am not angry that you gave Brittany these things. I am angry that you acted like you could not afford to give them to me, when the truth was you chose not to. You chose to prioritize her over me in every single way, and then you praised me for being mature enough to handle it. Last week was my college graduation, the culmination of 4 years of working multiple jobs taking out loans, sacrificing sleep and social life, and any semblance of fun to earn a degree that I paid for entirely on my own. And you were not there. You knew about my graduation for months. You confirmed you were coming, and then you decided that Brittany's beach vacation was more important. You did not even have the decency to tell me in advance. You let me think you were coming right up until the day before, and when I found out, you did not apologize. You just said you would celebrate with me later, as if missing the actual event was no big deal. 3 days later, you texted me asking for $2,100 for Brittany's Sweet 16 party. After missing my graduation, after not contributing to my education, after years of making me fend for myself, while you spoiled her, you had the audacity to ask me to fund her birthday party. When I refused, you showed up at my apartment demanding I let you in. When I would not, you called the police and filed a false report claiming I had stolen property from you. You tried to use law enforcement to punish me for setting a boundary. This is not a family. This is not love. This is financial abuse. This is emotional manipulation. This is what happens when parents play favorites so blatantly that one child is valued and the other is used. I am done. I am done trying to earn your love. I am done being the backup plan, the ATM, the son you remember exists only when you need something. I am done sacrificing my well-being for a family that has never sacrificed anything for me. Do not contact me anymore. Do not show up at my apartment. Do not call my work. Do not try to manipulate me through Brittany or other family members. I am removing myself from this toxic dynamic, and I am building a life that does not include people who treat me like I am disposable. If, at some point in the future, you genuinely want to apologize and work on repairing this relationship, I will consider it. But that apology needs to be real. It needs to include acknowledgement of everything you have done wrong. It needs to include changed behavior, not just words. And it needs to be about me, not about what you need from me. Until then, I am done. Connor. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I blocked their phone numbers. I blocked them on social media. I told my boss that if my parents called my work, he should not transfer them to me and should not give them any information about my schedule. I built a wall between them and me, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. The next few weeks were strange. I kept expecting them to show up, to find some way around my boundaries, to escalate. But they did not. There was silence. Through the grapevine of extended family, I heard that they were telling people I had cut them off for no reason, that I was ungrateful and disrespectful, that they had done everything for me, and this was how I repaid them. The story they were telling made them the victims and me the villain. I did not correct the narrative. I did not reach out to extended family to tell my side. I just let them believe what they wanted to believe. The people who really mattered would either figure out the truth or they would not. Either way, it was not my responsibility to manage my parents' reputation. My grandmother called me about 2 weeks after the police station incident. I picked up because I had always been close to her, and she had been genuinely upset about missing my graduation. "Connor," she said when I answered, "I heard about what happened. Your mother told me you are not speaking to them anymore." "That is correct." She said you sent them $1 and then blocked them. "Also correct." There was a pause. Then Grammy said, "Good for you." "What?" "Good for you, Connor. I have watched your parents treat you like you do not matter your entire life. I have spoken to them about it multiple times over the years. I have told them they are damaging you. They never listened. They just made excuses or changed the subject. You deserved better than what they gave you. And if cutting them off is what you need to do to protect yourself, then I support that." I felt my throat tighten. "You do?" "Absolutely. What they did to you is wrong. Missing your graduation for a beach trip? asking you for thousands of dollars after never supporting you financially, calling the police when you said no. That is not how parents should treat their children, and you do not owe them forgiveness or a relationship just because they are family. Thank you, Grammy. That means a lot. Of course, sweetheart. And Connor, I am so proud of you for graduating, for getting that job, for standing up for yourself. You have become an incredible young man in spite of your parents, not because of them. After we hung up, I cried for the first time since graduation. Not sad tears, relief tears. Someone in my family saw me. Someone acknowledged what had been done to me. Someone was proud of me. That validation from my grandmother gave me something I did not realize I desperately needed. Permission to feel angry. Permission to protect myself. Permission to prioritize my own well-being over family obligation. About a month after I sent that email, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, an actual letter. From my mother. It was long, several pages. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was an apology. Sort of. She apologized for missing my graduation. She said they had made a mistake and should have been there. She apologized for asking me for money right after. She said she could see now how that looked. But then the letter pivoted. She started explaining. They were stressed about finances. They wanted to give Brittany experiences they never got to have growing up. They thought I was so independent that I did not need them the way Brittany did. They thought I would understand. It was not a real apology. It was a justification disguised as an apology. She was not taking responsibility. She was making excuses. And notably absent from the letter, any acknowledgement of the 21 years of favoritism. Any recognition of how they had treated me versus how they treated Brittany. Any admission that they had systematically chosen her over me in every possible way. Also absent, an apology from my father. Just my mother writing on behalf of both of them. I put the letter in a drawer and did not respond. 2 months passed. I settled into my new job. I made friends with my coworkers. I started going to the gym. I got a cat. A tabby I named Milo, and suddenly my apartment felt more like home. I was building a life that was mine, separate from my family, and it was good. Better than good. I was happy. On what would have been Brittany's sweet 16, I thought about texting her, wishing her happy birthday, letting her know that my issue was with our parents, not with her. But I did not, because Brittany had been complicit in a way. She had grown up knowing she was the priority. She had seen how our parents treated me versus how they treated her, and she had never once questioned it, never once stood up for me, never once acknowledged that it was wrong. At 15, maybe that was understandable. She was still a kid, but I was not ready to reach out. Not yet. Instead, I sent $1 to my mom's Venmo. In the memo, I wrote, "For Brittany's party. My contribution. Petty? Maybe, but it felt good. I heard through Grammy that the party had been downgraded significantly. Without my $2,100, they could not afford the fancy venue they wanted. Brittany had been disappointed. My parents had been stressed. The party was fine, but not the extravaganza they had planned. Good. Let them learn that I was not their backup plan. Let them learn that their poor financial choices were not my responsibility to fix. Let them learn that treating one child like an ATM while spoiling the other has consequences. 3 months after graduation, I was at a work happy hour when I met someone. Her name was Alex, short for Alexandra, and she was a CPA at another firm in the building. We started talking about work stuff, then other stuff, and before I knew it we had been talking for 2 hours, and everyone else had left the bar. "I should probably go," she said, but she was smiling. "Yeah, me too," I said, not moving. "We should do this again sometime." The talking part, I mean, not the everyone else abandoning us part. I would like that. She gave me her number. We went out the following weekend. Then the weekend after that. By the end of the month, we were dating. Alex was the first person outside my grandmother that I told the whole story to. About my parents, about Brittany, about my graduation, about all of it. We were at her apartment about 6 weeks into dating, and it just came pouring out. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That is terrible. I am so sorry that happened to you. It is what it is." No, Connor, it is not just what it is. It is emotional abuse. You were systematically neglected in favor of your sister, financially exploited, and then punished when you tried to set boundaries. That is not normal family dysfunction. That is abuse. Hearing someone say that out loud, hearing someone validate what I had experienced as actual abuse rather than just my parents being flawed or imperfect, it was like something unlocked in my chest. I have never thought of it that way. That is because you were conditioned not to. They trained you to minimize your own needs and accept whatever scraps they threw you. They trained you to be grateful for basic things like graduation attendance that should be a given. They trained you to see their neglect as you being independent rather than them being neglectful. That is what abusers do. They reframe their abuse as your strength. You think my parents are abusers? I think your parents emotionally and financially abused you, yes. I do not know if they did it intentionally or if they are just so wrapped up in their own issues that they cannot see what they are doing. But the impact is the same. You were harmed, and you deserved better. That conversation with Alex was a turning point for me. She had named something I had never been able to name myself: abuse. My parents had abused me, not physically, but emotionally and financially. They had systematically neglected me in favor of my sister. They had exploited my capability and independence instead of nurturing it. They had trained me to accept scraps and call it love. I started reading about emotional abuse and family dynamics and favoritism. I read articles about scapegoat children and golden children. I read about parentification, where children are forced to take on adult responsibilities prematurely. I read about financial abuse within families. Every article I read, every description of dysfunctional family patterns, I saw my own childhood reflected back at me. There was a term I kept seeing: emotional neglect. It described parents who provide basic physical needs but fail to provide emotional support, attention, and validation. Parents who are physically present but emotionally absent. Parents who do not actively harm their children but do not actively love them either. That was my parents. They had never hit me. They had never screamed at me. They had never done anything that would get Child Protective Services called. But they had also never seen me, never valued me, never made me feel like I mattered. I also started reading survivor stories from other people who had been the forgotten child in their families, people who had siblings their parents clearly favored, people who had worked their way through college alone while their siblings got full parental support, people who had finally set boundaries and been punished for it. I was not alone. There were thousands, maybe millions, of people who had experienced what I experienced. That was validating, but also heartbreaking. How many people were out there right now, working 3 jobs to put themselves through school, graduating alone, being treated like ATMs by their families, and thinking it was normal? I decided to start therapy. My insurance through my new job covered mental health services with a $20 copay, and I searched for a therapist who specialized in family trauma. I found Dr. Maya Chun, a therapist in her 40s with great reviews. I called her office, got an appointment for the following week, and immediately started second-guessing myself. What was I going to say? "Hi, my parents skipped my graduation and asked me for money, so I think I need therapy." That sounded stupid. That sounded like I was overreacting. Maybe I was just being too sensitive. Maybe I was making a bigger deal out of this than it really was. But then I remembered Officer Johnson at the police station. I remembered Alex calling what my parents did abuse. I remembered all those articles about emotional neglect. This was not me being too sensitive. This was me finally recognizing that what had been done to me was not okay. My first therapy session was awkward. Dr. Chen's office was warm and comfortable, with soft lighting and plants, and a couch that was more comfortable than anything in my apartment. She was kind and professional, asking me questions about what brought me in, what I hoped to get out of therapy. I told her the basics. My family skipped my graduation. They asked me for money. I said no. They called the police. I had cut them off. That was the surface-level story. That sounds incredibly painful, Dr. Chen said. Your graduation should have been a moment of celebration. Instead, your family was not there, and then they asked you for money. That must have felt like a betrayal. It did. It does. Can you tell me more about your relationship with your family growing up? You mentioned you have a younger sister. And then it all came pouring out. 15 years of being the forgotten child. Every instance I could remember of being treated differently than Brittany. The soccer team I could not join. The Disney trips I was not invited on. The laptop I had to buy myself. The college fund that never existed for me. All of it. Dr. Chen listened without interrupting. She took occasional notes. She nodded at certain points. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, and then she said something that changed everything. Connor, what you have just described to me is a pattern of systematic emotional neglect and favoritism. Your parents created a family dynamic where one child, your sister, was valued and prioritized, and the other child, you, was expected to be self-sufficient to the point of being invisible. That is a form of abuse. There was that word again. Abuse. Hearing it from a professional, from someone trained to recognize these patterns, made it real in a way it had not been before. I have never thought of it that way, I said. That is because children who experience this kind of neglect often do not recognize it as abuse. It is not overt like physical abuse. It is not dramatic like screaming and chaos. It is quiet. It is the absence of things you should have received. Attention, validation, financial support, emotional presence. And the insidious thing about emotional neglect is that children often blame themselves. They think if they were just better, more successful, more lovable, their parents would pay attention to them. But that is not true. Your parents' inability to see you and value you is their failure, not yours. I felt tears start to run down my face. I had not cried about my family in years. I had trained myself not to, but sitting in Dr. Chen's office, having someone finally validate what I had experienced, I could not hold it back anymore. I worked so hard, I said, my voice breaking. I thought if I was just successful enough, if I graduated, if I got a good job, they would finally be proud of me. They would finally see me, but they did not come to my graduation. They chose a beach trip with Brittany over me. That must have been devastating. To work for 4 years, to achieve something significant, and to have your family not show up, that is a profound rejection. And then they had the audacity to ask me for money, like I did not matter at all except as a resource they could use. That is financial abuse. Exploiting a family member for money while providing nothing in return. Combined with the emotional neglect, you have experienced a significant amount of abuse from your parents over a long period of time. We spent the rest of that session talking about what abuse looks like in families, how it is not always obvious, how it can be wrapped in language like, "You are so independent," and "We are so proud of how responsible you are." How parents can neglect their children while genuinely believing they are doing nothing wrong. I left that first session feeling both validated and overwhelmed. Validated because someone had finally named what had been done to me. Overwhelmed because I was realizing the extent of the damage. This was not just about missing my graduation. This was about 21 years of being invisible, being used, being made to feel like I was less important than my sister. Over the next several months, I went to therapy every week. Dr. Chen helped me unpack 21 years of dysfunction. We talked about how I had learned to minimize my own needs, how I had learned to not ask for help, how I had internalized the belief that I was less important than Brittany, that I was only valuable when I was being useful to others. You developed what we call learned self-reliance, Dr. Chen explained in one session. It sounds positive. Being self-reliant is generally considered a good thing. But in your case, it was not a choice. It was a survival mechanism. You had to become self-reliant because your parents were not reliable. You had to take care of yourself because no one else was going to. That is not the same as healthy independence. That is a trauma response. She helped me see patterns I had never noticed. How I never asked for help even when I needed it. How I always assumed I had to do everything alone. How I felt guilty when people offered me support or kindness, like I did not deserve it. All of these were adaptations I had made to survive in a family that did not meet my needs. The goal of our work together, Dr. Chen said, is not to make you less self-reliant. You have developed incredible resilience and capability, and those are strengths. The goal is to help you see that you did not have to develop those strengths the way you did, that you deserved support and care from your parents, and that now, as an adult, you can choose to let people support you. You can choose to ask for help. You can choose to believe that you deserve care and attention, not because you have earned it by being useful, but because you are a human being who matters. That was hard for me to believe. I had spent my entire life earning my worth, working hard to prove I deserved to exist in my family's orbit. The idea that I could just matter, just by existing, without having to constantly prove myself, was foreign to me. But slowly, over weeks and months of therapy, I started to internalize it. I started to believe that maybe I did deserve better than what my parents had given me. Maybe I was not too sensitive or demanding. Maybe my needs were legitimate. Maybe I had a right to be angry about how I had been treated. Dr. Chen also helped me understand that cutting off my parents was not me being immature or holding a grudge. It was me setting healthy boundaries with people who had repeatedly shown they could not or would not treat me with basic respect and care. You do not owe them a relationship, Dr. Chen told me in one session. You do not owe them forgiveness. You do not owe them access to your life. Family is not a free pass to treat you poorly. You get to decide who is in your life based on how they treat you, not based on biology. But people keep telling me they are my parents. I should work it out with them. That family is important. That I will regret this someday. People who have not lived your experience do not get to tell you how to handle it. You are the only one who knows what you need. And if what you need is distance from people who have hurt you repeatedly, that is valid. You are not obligated to maintain relationships with people who are toxic, even if they are family. But what if I do regret it someday? What if I am making a mistake? Then you can make a different choice at that time. Cutting off your parents now does not mean you can never have a relationship with them in the future. It means you are prioritizing your well-being right now. If circumstances change, if they genuinely change and take accountability and do the work to become better people, you can reassess. But you do not have to stay in a harmful relationship on the off chance they might change someday. That is not your responsibility. That conversation was liberating. I had been carrying so much guilt about cutting them off. Guilt about being the son who did not talk to his parents. Guilt about potentially breaking up the family. Guilt about whether I was doing the right thing. But Dr. Chen helped me see that my first responsibility was to myself, to my own well-being, to my own mental health, and that taking care of myself sometimes meant walking away from people who could not take care of me. I continued therapy for months, working through layers of pain and anger and grief. Grief for the childhood I should have had. Grief for the parents I deserved but never got. Grief for the relationship with Brittany that might have been possible if our parents had not poisoned it with favoritism. Grief for the young man who had worked himself to exhaustion trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. But I also started to heal. I started to understand that my worth was not determined by my parents' inability to see it. I started to build a chosen family of friends and Alex and people who actually valued me. I started to believe that I deserved to be loved, not for what I could do for others, but for who I was. Dr. Chun gave me homework assignments between sessions, journaling about my feelings, practicing setting boundaries in other areas of my life, learning to ask for help when I needed it, challenging the negative beliefs I had internalized about myself. One assignment was particularly powerful. She asked me to write a letter to my younger self, to the 10-year-old Connor who did not get to join soccer, to the 15-year-old Connor who had to buy his own laptop, to the 18-year-old Connor who was about to start college with no financial support, to tell him what he needed to hear. I wrote that letter, and I cried through the entire thing. I told young Connor that he deserved better, that he was not too much or too needy, that his parents' inability to prioritize him was their failure, not his, that he was going to survive this and come out stronger, that he was going to build a life he was proud of, that he was going to find people who actually saw him and valued him. Writing that letter helped me see how far I had come. That scared, hurt child was still inside me somewhere, but he was no longer running the show. Adult Connor, the one who had survived and thrived and set boundaries, he was in charge now, and he was doing okay, more than okay. 6 months after graduation, I got a Facebook message from Brittany. I had not blocked her on social media because she had not been actively harassing me like our parents had been. I had just muted her posts so I did not have to see constant updates about the perfect life Mom and Dad were giving her. Her message said, "Connor, I know you are not talking to Mom and Dad right now. I do not really understand why, but I wanted to reach out because I miss you. You are my brother and I do not want to lose you over whatever is going on with them. Can we talk?" I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to explain everything to her. Part of me wanted to tell her exactly how complicit she had been in my mistreatment, even if it was passive complicity. Instead, I wrote back, "Brittany, I appreciate you reaching out. I miss you too. But I am not ready to have a relationship with you right now. What is happening with Mom and Dad is not just whatever's going on. It is the result of 21 years of them treating me like I do not matter. And while I do not blame you for that, you have benefited from it your entire life without ever questioning it or standing up for me. Until you can acknowledge that and understand why it was wrong, I do not think we can have a relationship. I hope someday we can, but not yet." She responded immediately, "I do not understand what you are talking about. Mom and Dad love both of us. They have always treated us the same." That response told me everything I needed to know. She genuinely did not see it. She had been so immersed in being the golden child that she could not recognize the inequality. She thought I was overreacting or imagining things. I wrote back one more time. "Brittany, when I was in college, did Mom and Dad pay for any of my tuition or expenses?" "I do not know. I guess not." "Did they pay for your Disney World trips? Your iPad? Your beach vacation last spring break?" "Yes, but I do not see what that has to do with anything. That is the problem. You do not see it. And until you do, we do not have anything to talk about." I did not respond to her next message. There was no point. She was not ready to see the truth, and I was not going to exhaust myself trying to explain it to someone who did not want to understand. Around the 8-month mark after graduation, something shifted. I stopped thinking about my parents every day. I stopped wondering if they would reach out. I stopped hoping for an apology or some grand gesture of understanding. I just moved on with my life. I got promoted at work. My boss recognized that I was putting in extra effort and learning quickly, and he bumped me up to senior associate after less than a year. It came with a raise and more responsibilities and validation that I was good at what I did. Alex and I moved in together. It was a little fast by conventional standards, but it felt right. We found a great 2-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood, and we made it ours. We adopted a second cat to keep Milo company. We hosted dinner parties with friends. We built a life together that was full and happy and healthy. My grandmother came to visit us around Thanksgiving. She was so proud of the life I had built. She loved Alex. She loved our apartment. She told me over and over how happy she was that I had found peace and happiness after everything. "Have you talked to your parents at all?" she asked over dinner. "No. Have they said anything to you?" "Your mother asks about you sometimes. I tell her you are doing well, but that you are not ready to talk. I do not give her any details about your life. I respect your boundaries." "Thank you, Grammy." She still does not really understand what she did wrong. She thinks you are punishing her for one mistake. She does not see the pattern. That is not my responsibility to teach her. You are right. It is not. But I want you to know, in case you ever do want to reconcile, she is in therapy now. Both of them are. Whether it will actually change anything, I do not know. But they are trying. Trying for themselves, or trying so I will come back. Grammy smiled sadly. Probably a bit of both, knowing your mother. I thought about that conversation for days afterward. My parents were in therapy. That was good. But were they in therapy because they genuinely wanted to change and understood they had hurt me? Or were they in therapy because they wanted me back in their lives so they could continue using me? I realized it did not actually matter. Whether they changed or not, whether they learned or not, whether they became better people or not, none of that was about me. I had already done the hard work of extracting myself from their dysfunction. I had already built a happy life without them. Whether they grew or stagnated was their business, not mine. A year after graduation, I was at a coffee shop near my apartment when I ran into someone from high school. Jessica Chun, a girl I had been friendly with but not super close to. She recognized me immediately. "Connor Matthews. Oh my God, how are you?" "Hey Jessica. I am good. How are you?" We chatted for a few minutes about what we had been up to since graduation. She was in law school. I told her about my job. "Your family must be so proud," she said. "Your parents always bragged about you in high school." I almost laughed. "Did they?" "Oh yeah. Your mom was always talking about how responsible you were, how you worked so hard, how you were going to do great things. She made it sound like you were this super mature kid who had everything figured out." "Right. Very mature. I actually ran into your mom a few months ago at the grocery store. She mentioned you guys were not really talking right now. She seemed really sad about it." "I am sure she did." Jessica picked up on my tone. "Sorry, I did not mean to bring up something sensitive." "It is fine. My relationship with my parents is complicated. They were good at looking like great parents to the outside world, but the reality was more complex." "I get that. Family stuff is hard." After Jessica left, I thought about what she had said. My parents had always presented themselves well to others. They had cultivated this image of being supportive parents who were raising independent, successful kids. But it was all performance. Behind closed doors, they were neglectful and selfish and manipulative. That is the thing about people like my parents. They are not cartoonishly evil. They do not look like villains. From the outside, they looked like normal, flawed people doing their best. It was only when you were on the inside, when you were the one being harmed, that you could see the dysfunction. And that is why it had been so hard for me to recognize what was happening for so long, because I kept comparing my family to some imaginary standard of obvious abuse. I kept thinking that since they were not hitting me or screaming at me or doing clearly terrible things, maybe I was just being too sensitive. Maybe I was expecting too much. But emotional neglect is still harm. Financial exploitation is still abuse. Favoritism is still damaging. Just because it does not leave visible scars does not mean it does not leave scars. 15 months after graduation, on a random Tuesday evening, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my father. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. It was short, just 1 page, and it said, "Connor, I know you do not want to hear from me, and I respect that. I am not writing this to ask you to talk to me or to forgive me. I am writing this because there are things I need to say, and I need to say them whether you respond or not. You were right. About all of it. Your mother and I failed you. We prioritized Brittany over you in every possible way. We took your independence and maturity for granted instead of recognizing that we had forced you into that role. We exploited your capability instead of nurturing it. We asked you to give and give and give without ever giving you what you needed in return. I have been in therapy for the past 6 months. It has been hard, really hard, because I have had to confront things about myself that I do not like. I have had to admit that I was not the father I thought I was, that I hurt you in ways I cannot undo. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I am just asking that you know I see it now. I see what I did. I see how I failed you. And I am sorry. I am so sorry. I am proud of you. For graduating. For your job. For having the strength to walk away from us. You did what I should have taught you to do. You protected yourself. You set boundaries. You refused to accept being treated poorly. Those are things I should have modeled for you. Instead, I taught you that family is an obligation rather than a choice. You do not owe me anything. Not a relationship, not forgiveness, not even a response to this letter. But I wanted you to know that I am trying to become a better person, not to get you back, but because I should have been better all along. Your father, Greg. I read that letter 3 times. It was different from my mother's letter. It was not full of excuses or justifications. It was just accountability. Maybe it was therapy speaking. Maybe it was genuine growth. I did not know. I put the letter in the drawer with all the other letters. I did not respond, but I did not throw it away either. Another few months passed. I was promoted again at work, Alex, and I got engaged. Life was good, really good, and I barely thought about my parents anymore. They had become a closed chapter in my life, past pain that I had processed and moved on from. Then, 2 years after graduation, I got a call from an unknown number. Usually I did not answer those, but I was expecting a call from a potential client. So I picked up. "Hello, Connor, it is Dad." I froze. "How did you get this number?" "Grammy gave it to me. Please, do not hang up. I am not calling to argue or to ask you for anything. I am calling because Brittany graduates high school next month, and she asked me to invite you." Brittany asked. "Yes. She has been doing some growing up of her own. She has been talking to a therapist. She understands now what we did, how we treated you, and she wants you there for her graduation, as her brother, not as our son, as her brother." "I do not know, Dad. I understand. And if you say no, that is okay. But I want you to know that if you do come, your mother and I will respect your boundaries. We will not try to corner you or force a conversation. We will not make it about us. This would be about supporting Brittany. Nothing else. I need to think about it. Of course. The graduation is on June 10th at 2 p.m. If you decide to come, I will leave a ticket for you at will call under your name. No pressure. Just the option. He hung up. I sat with my phone in my hand, staring at the wall. That night, I talked to Alex about it. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I do not know. Part of me wants to support Brittany. She is my sister, but part of me thinks this is just going to open old wounds." "Do you think Brittany is genuine about having grown?" "I do not know. Maybe. She has been through therapy. That is something." "What does your gut say?" I thought about it. My gut says I should go. Not for my parents. Not even really for Brittany. But for myself. To prove that I can show up for family events on my terms. To prove that they do not have power over me anymore. "Then go. And I will be right there with you." June 10th arrived. Alex and I drove to my hometown together. We parked at the high school, and I went to will call to pick up my ticket. True to his word, my dad had left one for me. We found seats in the stadium. I spotted my parents about 10 rows down. They saw me too, and my mother started to stand up, like she was going to come over. But my father put his hand on her arm and stopped her. They waved. I nodded back. That was it. The ceremony started. I watched all the graduates walk across the stage. When they called Brittany's name, I stood up and clapped. She looked up into the stands, saw me, and her face lit up. She waved. I waved back. After the ceremony, I was walking to the parking lot with Alex when I heard someone call my name. "Connor, wait." I turned. It was Brittany, still in her cap and gown, running toward me. "You came," she said, slightly out of breath. "I did not think you would actually come. I wanted to support you. Congratulations on graduating." "Thank you, and thank you for coming. I know things are complicated with Mom and Dad, but it meant a lot to me that you were here. You are welcome." She hesitated. "Can we talk sometime? Just you and me?" I have learned a lot in the past 2 years. About myself, about our family, about what happened to you. I would like to try to have a relationship with you if you are open to it. No pressure, just when you are ready. I looked at my little sister. She was not the oblivious 15-year-old anymore. She was 17 now, almost 18, almost an adult. And she seemed genuinely different, more aware, more mature. "Maybe," I said. "Let me think about it. That is all I am asking. Thank you for coming, Connor. It really meant everything." She hugged me quickly and then ran off to take pictures with her friends, Alex, and I drove home. I felt oddly peaceful. I had gone to my sister's graduation. I had seen my parents without letting them control or manipulate me. I had set the terms and held my boundaries, and it felt good. Whether I would rebuild a relationship with Brittany, I did not know yet. Whether I would ever speak to my parents beyond polite acknowledgement at family events, I did not know. But what I did know was that I was okay either way. My happiness did not depend on them anymore. My sense of worth did not depend on their validation. I had built a life that was mine, and it was good. Looking back at everything that had happened over the past 2 years, I could see how much I had grown. I was not that scared 21-year-old graduate anymore, sitting alone in his apartment on graduation night, feeling worthless and invisible. I had become someone different, someone stronger, someone who knew his own value. I thought about all the milestones I had hit in those 2 years, getting promoted at work, not once but twice. My bosses recognized my work ethic and my skills, and they rewarded me for it. I was making good money now. Not rich, but comfortable. I could afford my bills with money left over. I could save for the future. I could buy nice things occasionally without guilt. I was financially stable in a way I had never been before. I thought about Alex and how she had changed my life. She was the first person who had ever seen me completely and loved me anyway. She knew about my family. She knew about my struggles. She knew about my fears and insecurities, and she chose to be with me, not because I was useful to her, not because I could do something for her, but because she loved who I was as a person. That was revolutionary for me. That kind of unconditional love and acceptance was something I had never experienced from my family, and having it now from Alex showed me what I had been missing my entire life. I thought about the friends I had made, coworkers who had become genuine friends, people I grabbed drinks with after work, people who invited me to their homes for game nights and dinner parties, people who showed up for me when I needed them. I had built a community of people who cared about me, and that community was stronger and more supportive than my biological family had ever been. I thought about Dr. Chun and how therapy had transformed my understanding of myself. I had learned that I was not broken or defective. I had learned that my parents' inability to love me properly was not a reflection of my worth. I had learned that I could set boundaries without guilt. I had learned that I deserved care and attention and support. I had learned that asking for help was not weakness, but strength. I had learned so many things that should have been taught to me by loving parents, but that I had to learn on my own as an adult. That was sad, but it was also empowering. I had reparented myself. I had given myself the validation and support my parents never gave me. I thought about Grammy and how her support had meant everything to me. She had seen the dysfunction in my family. She had validated my pain. She had been proud of me. She had shown me that it was possible for someone in my family to love me without conditions or expectations. That had given me hope that maybe not everyone in my biological family was lost to the dysfunction. Maybe there were some relationships worth preserving. I thought about the letter I had written to my younger self. I thought about that scared, hurt child who had spent his entire childhood trying to earn love from parents who were never going to give it. I thought about how much I wished I could go back and tell him that it was not his fault, that he was enough, that he deserved better, that he was going to survive and build something beautiful from the ashes of that painful childhood. I thought about resilience and what it really meant, not the Instagram quote kind of resilience, real resilience, the kind that comes from having no choice but to be strong, the kind that comes from working 3 jobs and getting 5 hours of sleep and still showing up every day, the kind that comes from graduating alone and starting a new job and building a life with no support system. I had that kind of resilience, and it had cost me so much, but it had also given me so much. It had given me the knowledge that I could survive anything, that I could handle whatever life threw at me, that I did not need anyone to save me because I could save myself. But I also thought about the cost of that resilience. The relationships I did not have time for in college, the experiences I missed out on, the fun and spontaneity and youth that I sacrificed because I was too busy surviving. That was a loss I would carry forever. I could never get those years back. I could never have a normal college experience. That ship had sailed, and while I was proud of what I had accomplished, I was also allowed to grieve what I had lost. I thought about forgiveness and whether I would ever forgive my parents. Forgiveness was complicated. Dr. Chun had taught me that forgiveness was not the same as reconciliation. I could forgive them without having a relationship with them. I could forgive them for my own peace of mind without giving them access to my life. I could forgive them while still holding them accountable for what they did. But was I there yet? Was I ready to forgive them? I did not know. Some days I felt like I could. Some days I felt like I understood they were flawed people doing the best they could with their own trauma and limitations. Some days I felt compassion for them and the pain they must carry knowing they lost their son. But other days I was still angry. Other days I remembered sitting alone at my graduation. Other days I remembered the $2,100 text message. Other days I remembered them calling the police on me. Other days the anger was fresh and hot and consuming. Maybe forgiveness was not something you did once and were done with. Maybe it was something you had to choose over and over again, day by day, moment by moment. Maybe some days you could forgive, and some days you could not, and that was okay. Maybe it was a process rather than a destination. I thought about Brittany and whether we would ever have a real relationship. She was 18 now, an adult in her own right. She had gone through her own therapy. She had done her own work to understand the family dynamics and her role in them. She had reached out with genuine humility and a desire to understand. That was more than my parents had done. Maybe there was hope for a relationship with her. Maybe not now, maybe not for a while. But someday, when I was ready, when she had demonstrated through consistent action that she truly understood and had changed, when the wound was not so fresh, maybe someday we could be siblings in a real way, not just people who shared DNA and a traumatic childhood. I thought about what success really meant. For so long, I had defined success as professional achievement and financial stability. Those things mattered. They gave me security and options and the ability to take care of myself. But they were not the only measure of success. Maybe success was also about building authentic relationships. Maybe it was about healing from trauma. Maybe it was about learning to love yourself. Maybe it was about having the courage to walk away from toxicity even when it was hard. Maybe it was about building a life that was true to who you were rather than who others expected you to be. By all those measures, I was successful. More successful than I had ever imagined being when I was that scared 18-year-old starting college with no support and no idea how he was going to make it. I thought about where I wanted to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I wanted to keep growing professionally. I wanted to maybe start my own accounting firm someday. I wanted to marry Alex and have a family of our own. I wanted to be the kind of parent I never had, the kind who showed up, the kind who saw their children, the kind who loved unconditionally. I wanted to break the cycle of dysfunction and create something better. I wanted to continue building my chosen family. I wanted deep friendships and meaningful connections. I wanted to be the kind of friend who showed up for people the way people had shown up for me. I wanted to pay forward the kindness and support I had received from Alex and Grammy and Dr. Chun and Officer Johnson and all the people who had helped me along the way. I wanted to continue healing. I wanted to keep going to therapy and doing the work to understand myself and grow. I wanted to become the best version of myself. Not perfect, but healthy. Not without scars, but not defined by them either. And maybe someday, if my parents did the work and truly changed and took genuine accountability, maybe I would be open to some kind of relationship with them. But that was not something I needed to decide now. That was a bridge I could cross if and when I got to it. For now, I was content with where I was, with the boundaries I had set, with the life I had built, with the person I had become. And that is the real victory. Not punishing them, not getting revenge, not even getting an apology, though my father's willingness to admit fault had been meaningful. The real victory was becoming someone who did not need them, someone who had learned to value himself enough to walk away from people who did not value him, someone who had learned that family is not an obligation but a choice. I am Connor Matthews. I am 23 years old. I have a career I am proud of. I have a woman I love who loves me back. I have friends who show up for me. I have a grandmother who has always seen me. I have a therapist who has helped me heal. I have a life that I built on my own terms. And I graduated college completely alone. That will always hurt. That will always be a scar I carry. But I did not stay alone. I found people who chose to be there for me. I found people who showed up. I found people who valued me. And that made all the difference. The loneliness of that graduation day taught me who my family really was. Not the people who shared my DNA, but the people who showed up, the people who saw me, The people who loved me without conditions or expectations. That was real family. That was what mattered. And now, 2 years later, I have that family. It looks different than I thought it would. It is smaller in some ways and bigger in others. But it is mine. And it is real. And it is enough. More than enough. Thank you for listening to my story of growing up faster than I ever wanted to. I have left 2 more stories on your screen, both from young men who learned that sometimes becoming an adult does not happen at 18. It happens the moment your family needs you to be strong. Click on whichever one speaks to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be forced to grow up overnight, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, age is just a number, but courage defines who you really are.